Hey everyone, I'm Scott Brandley.
And I'm Alicia Coakley. Every member of the church has a story to share, one that can instill faith, invite growth, and inspire others.
On today's episode, we're going to hear how one missionary who was born with only half a heart is giving all he has to teach others that God is in our story and he'll prepare us to get where we're going. Welcome to Latter-day Lights. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Latter-day Lights. We're so glad you're here with us today, and you're in for a special treat because we're here with Elder Logan Castleton, also known as the Rapping Missionary. Hey, Elder, welcome to the show.
How's it going? I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. I have to tell our listeners, this is the first time since Scott and I started this show almost 2.5 years ago that we have not heard the whole story of our guests beforehand. And so we're really just going to be like in the passenger seats with you guys, hearing about, Elder Castleton's story and just, why is he a missionary sitting there with keyboards and headphones and oxygen and all of the things on there? But we don't want to give anything away just yet. So instead, I'm going to ask you, Elder, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what your family's like, where you're at right now?
Yeah, definitely. So right now I'm in North Utah. I'm a service missionary in the Utah Ogden Mission. I've been serving since July 2023 and I'll finish in July 2025. I love music. I was born with a heart condition and I'm excited to share my story with you all today.
So cool. We're just going to get started. So,
okay.
Elder, where does your story begin?
Yeah. So I'm Elder Castleton. I'm so excited to be here. You're probably wondering what all this is about. And I'll start when I was born. I actually wasn't expected to be born because I had hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which means that I was born with half of a heart. So they didn't expect me to be born or live or come out breathing. However, when I did, my mom cried because it was such a miracle.
Wow.
I've had a few open heart surgeries, 3 when before the age of 2 years old. And I've continued to have heart surgeries since then. More implications of that. Basically, I know I will need a heart transplant in the future. However, I do not know when, and I've never known when. Yeah, so being born with this heart condition led to a lot of implications in school. I couldn't do what the other kids could. I couldn't do sports. I couldn't run around. I actually stayed inside. A lot of my elementary school, I stayed inside at recess, where I was always known as non-athletic or whatnot because my heart physically couldn't produce that much energy. I had a pacemaker to help my heart run. And as a kid in 5th grade, we moved out to Colorado. I was born in Indiana, moved to Colorado, to Denver. In Denver, my parents, so I have 3 younger siblings, and my mom and dad divorced when I was in 6th grade. Around that time, I had a surprise open chest surgery where they needed to replace my pacemaker, and essentially it was a big thing. And at the same time, I was working with nonprofit organizations like Make-A-Wish Foundation, Serious Fun Children's Network, American Heart Association. For all those who don't know what Make-A-Wish is, they basically give you a wish. You just tell them what you want. And if it meets certain criteria, and if you're eligible, if you have a medical condition, then they will give you that gift. I was going to wish for a piano, a grand piano. However, instead, I wished for recording studio equipment.
Aww. So, like, how did you get into that? Where did your music talent start?
Yeah. So because I couldn't do sports as a kid, my mom, for Christmas one year, randomly, she just got a keyboard so she could relearn how to play the piano. And I took over that piano. I learned it, and it was so liberating for me to be able to do something and not be told you can't do this or you got to be careful here. I could just be on the piano however long I want and whatnot, and basically just take this instrument and learn it and share my music with other people. Because of this, And because of my story, like I mentioned earlier, these nonprofit organizations started to reach out. And actually, even as a young kid, like I was 2 years old, American Heart Association, I worked with them already going to fundraisers.
Wow.
Um, so from a young age, in middle school, instead of doing sports or doing different activities, while I didn't participate in school activities like student council, NGHS, etc., with my friends, I also traveled nationally, going to New York, LA, London, to different parts of the country, and performing in these venues with celebrities and other fundraiser events with these nonprofit organizations. And I'd play the piano and share my story. So I grew up public speaking and
Gosh.
sharing this musical
What was
love.
like what was your first experience like?
I honestly I don't remember a time when I wasn't doing it. Like I said,
Mhm.
I remember starting. I remember watching a video from 2014. So I was like, how old is that? So 10 years old. But I started even prior than that. So I was probably like 8, 7 years old when I started doing the piano. And I remember I was at a venue of basically like 200, 300 adults, fine whining and just at this fancy fundraiser activity. And I would just play the piano. Everybody would clap and cheer. I'd go on the microphone, say something witty that my mom wrote down for me to say, and then share some of my story. And then that was my night.
Oh my
That was my
God.
night as an 8-year-old. And I grew up like that. So I grew up in situations where I'm super comfortable talking with adults because I've just always talked with them. And I've always been built up with my confidence level to be able to perform and be able to speak and to be able to work with amazing people from diverse backgrounds. I remember in New York, there were people from Israel and all different parts of the country as well. New York, Connecticut, whatnot.
Mhm.
And we all just got together for a week, practiced, rehearsed, met a lot of cool people like Tom Hanks, George Clooney, and then just as a fifth
What?
grader, and played on stage in front of 2,200 people, gave my story,
Oh my.
which was witty and super special, and then walked off, and then went back to had to catch up on my sixth grade reading homework. And
I feel like
So-
you should have gotten
so-
a pass.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was the purpose of this to help raise money for these nonprofits.
it was,
Wow.
and
So that's
and that's
cool.
why it was amazing who I worked with. Roundup River Ranch being one of them. Basically, it was one of the times where I could actually do physical activity in a safe environment. It was like a summer camp where I could just go and zip line and rock wall with medical professionals around and
Oh
people just building
wow.
up confidence. It was wonderful. And I met all these people, and it was amazing. And I remember that being different from my friends, right? But
Mhm.
I really liked doing it. I've always loved performing, public speaking. I'm loving this podcast. It's just my cup of herbal tea. Don't drink tea. Just kidding. And I just so I grew up that way. Sixth grade, I had an open chest surgery, and that's been my last open chest surgery. Um, Sixth grade, I remember coming in. So I was about to get my wish granted, and it was the week of, and I got called into the office, and they said, "Hey, they want to, your mom wants to meet you. She's got something to tell you." I was like, "Oh, this is Make a Wish America. Tell me about my wish." She said, "Hey, the doctor's called. They noticed something funny on your pacemaker. Let's just go. It'll be super quick." We went, and that's when I was called into open chest surgery. So the week of my wish was going to be granted. I was recovering from my open chest surgery, and it was awful. It was a lot of pain I felt that I can't describe, and it was a lot of. I was sixth grade, and I was just like, why? Why does that happen? And I've always been. I grew up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and while I struggled with testimony, as a lot of people do, or my experiences, um, I honestly can't remember. I've blocked out a lot of things from my childhood because they were so hard. That's not
Mm.
healthy. And but I remember just wanting to move on. I really, if it wasn't for that wish, it would have been an even worse week. I really held on to the fact that I want to get out of the hospital so I can go to my wish and start making music.
Wow.
And one of the amazing things is that if I were to get the piano, I wouldn't have all this studio equipment. And it was such an inspired change for me to say, no, I want this studio. That and my mom really helped push me to do that as well. So
Wow.
my terms of hanging out in middle school was I'd bring my friends over after school. We'd make a funny iMovie and we'd record it on my computer and I'd play the drums for them. And then I'd go here. And then that was just a fun time. And I'd always be in my studio. Ninth
Wow.
grade, at this time, let's see here, my parents were still divorced. Well, obviously, my parents, as my parents were divorced, we'd spend some time with dad, and then we'd live with mom. And this was going on too for a while. And so ninth grade, all my friends, all my good friends from middle school, they went to a different school, a charter school, and I applied for an art school, Denver School of the Arts. And it was kind of the first time in my life where I really had a bigger decision to make. And I wasn't sure how to make it. I wasn't ever confident. While I was confident in myself on stage, I wasn't ever in my personal life because of some just troubles I had with my childhood with dealing with divorce and heart circumstances. So I wasn't ever confident. And I always looked to people older than me or in specific leadership positions to kind of tell me what to do. And it was my first time learning that no matter what I chose, it'd be okay, right? As long as they're both good choice, I'll be okay. And but to that was a really key moment where I decided to go to Denver School of the Arts. That really altered the course of my life as well. When I went to Denver School of the Arts, I tried making friends. I didn't have any friends there. I just didn't share the same values as they did. I lived 40 minutes away from the school and they lived 40 minutes the other way. So we were an hour and a half from each other.
Wow.
And all my friends were hanging out in their same high school. And I remember sitting by myself freshman, sophomore year at a little spot outside. We could do off-campus lunches. And basically I was just sitting outside. I had a specific tree I sat by. So freshman, sophomore year, I'd be by myself sitting at this tree eating lunch on my phone on Instagram. I'd call my mom every day. And freshman, sophomore year, that's how it went. The last 90 minutes of the day, you majored in something. So it was kind of like a mini college almost. So I majored in piano because I grew up performing at these events. I had amazing teachers. And my first teacher taught me a lot about pop music and how to do really fun arrangements of popular songs for these events.
Mm-hmm.
My next teacher really taught me how to get more technical with the piano, learn classical piano, and continue to further that. And I did a lot of piano competitions and a lot of things like that to really up my piano game. And that helped me get into Denver School of the Arts. When I was at DSA, or Denver School of the Arts, 9th and 10th grade, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my music. My music taste till then kind of varied a lot with whatever my friends were listening to. Not even that, just whatever my family was listening to. And basically it was in 10th grade where I got into a music well, 9th and 10th grade, I actually started doing little raps for school projects because they said at DSA you could either write an essay about a topic or do like a creative art project or song. And I was like, I don't want to write an essay. I just want to do a song. So basically I used my recording studio equipment to create these songs. So I did a rap about aquifers, super random science thing. And then I did a rap about Alan Turing and all these different things. And in 10th grade, I got into this music audio production class. And one of my friends, he was really into EDM, like that you were really cool if you knew EDM at DSA and how to make it electronic dance music.
I was like, what is EDM? Remember, we're old. That's what I thought you were saying.
Yourself, Alicia. I know what EDM music is.
Whatever.
You're way old.
The electronic dance music things, just super heavy bass. You had a drop, which was basically like the music would get to a point where the bass and the drums would get really heavy, and it was just dance music.
Okay.
And it was really popular to know this kind of music, and I thought it would be really cool to learn more of it. So I learned more of it, and I'd I remember coming home. So all during high school too, I also went to random spots in Denver to public speak and perform piano and different high schools and things and engage the crowd. It was awesome. So I remember getting out of school early in the day. I went to perform at a high school, and I came back to my audio production class, just resumed the school day, and I showed my friends this this EDM song or electronic dance music song, and
Mm-hmm.
it was great. They loved it, and I received a lot of validation from that. And basically, through my high school, I was learning about social media. I was the first kid um, since I'm the oldest, I was the one. Instagram was not new, but just social media and kids were new to how to parent or whatnot. So basically, I had Instagram. I had a lot of limits, obviously, but I remember using Instagram a lot and being on it all the time. And that's how I found my comfort a lot in media. Like if I was lonely or whatnot, I'd spend a lot of time in my studio writing songs, going through a lot of typical high school things with oh, she doesn't like me, or he doesn't think I'm cool or whatnot. And I spent a lot of time in music and learning how to make it to be relevant, or learning how to make it because it was fun, or the fun thing to do. And also just finding a lot of peace in it too. I remember writing my first spiritual song in 7th grade, and it was cool for me to see. It was just kind of one of those times where I showed my grandma, and she loved it, and she's like, "You're going to be a great person one day, or you are." And that was the first time I did something like super meaningful, right? Because the other songs were just about random things. And so basically, I came off of that, and I remember just wanting. It wasn't. I didn't have any friend, or I felt like I didn't have any friends, which is a lot of people feel that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even now, I feel like don't have a lot of friends. And I was trying to find spiritually, I loved mutual, or I guess now you'd like just youth activities
Mm-hmm.
that they have at Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. I loved going there. I loved my member friends. I looked forward to Wednesday nights a lot just to do that. And I had fun leaders and things like that. And I remember the end of sophomore year, COVID hit. So it was all online. And I remember my mom bringing up the idea of moving to Utah, and I just loved it instantly because growing up, like we vacationed to Utah to stay with my grandma, and I loved my cousins, and I always remember being so sad when I had to come back just to
Yeah.
real life and didn't know anybody, didn't connect, back to my own thing. And so I was so excited about it. And my dad stayed in Colorado and we moved to Utah. And it was just such a fun. So DSA as well, it doesn't have like sports, it doesn't have a gym, it has like concert halls instead. So I
Gotcha.
really and watching media growing up, I was really excited to go to like a normal public school, right? Like it has
Mm-hmm.
all the sports and the student section and the cheer section,
Right.
and it was great. So I went there, and I remember the first 6 months, I remember being super excited about it. Actually, like excited, like tell my friends, like, "Hey, I'm moving to Utah," like so excited about it. And I was 100% excited. I moved to Utah the first 6 months, and all throughout this time, like my health was stable.
Okay.
So my whole life I wasn't on oxygen. Sorry, I guess I should have thrown that out there.
Oh, okay.
I was never on oxygen, only for a brief time in like 4th or 5th grade.
Gotcha.
Never on oxygen. Looks like I look super healthy without oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was stable through high school. I don't know why. I was just really stable. And it was such a blessing. I went to doctors. The hard part was going to doctor's appointments every 6 months. Basically, I'd forget about it until like the week of,
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh, I hope like my heart isn't failing. And then having that such a anxious like thing, come up every 6 months, and then
Mm-hmm.
just waiting for the doctor's response. Okay, you're stable. Okay, I'm fine. But I remember
You really
like a
could
lot.
just forget it. Like you could just like live and not think about it. And
It was a protective thing with me
wow.
mentally. I didn't ever address it. It was really bad though, because I remember one year in like junior year, or actually like throughout junior year, like I remember, and just for a long time. I'd be laying in bed and be like so worried that my heart would just fail and like I just die. And that was a huge fear of mine.
Wow.
And it was, I had a lot of anxiety with that. I had a lot of anxiety with my health that I'd give out, that I couldn't do something because my friends were doing it and I just couldn't physically. And so it was bringing all that sports things back into just what I did here.
Right.
The first 6 months of my junior year, I tried so hard to make friends and I couldn't make any. And I just remember like, this was a part where I was like, why me? I'm doing all I can. Like I'm living a good life. I have all these struggles with my family and with my heart condition, and why. And at that same time, I learned that I would need, that my liver was also failing. So now I was like, great. Now my heart and my liver is failing. I just moved here. I don't have friends. My family's struggling, etc. It was just a lot of things. And I remember one day I was just like, man, it's just so hard. Like I'm not making any friends. The next day I met my best friend and it was incredible. It was just like, it was my story, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that a lot. But for some reason, I just did. I met one of my best friends, still hang out with him today. It was such a blessing. Then a few weeks, months later, I met my second best friend, and I had two really good friends in high school. Senior year, I remember I got into student council, and I was so excited to be popular and cool and everything like that. And the first week, I remember having to be at the school super early to greet the people at the doors. And I just remember just the culture of the student council was so, at least the one I was a part of, was not genuine whatsoever. It was just, I remember someone telling them, so that whole week, because of my heart condition, if ever I exert like too much, like after dances and things, like if I ever went to like a high school dance or a stake dance, like I'd go home, like exert so much energy. And I actually have a lot of energy. Like that's what's surprising. Like I'm very social, very outgoing because of my performing and because of this. And I just come home and then be super nauseous, throw up, and then be sick. And I couldn't exert a lot of energy. So that was really hard trying to be super fun and then exert. So that first week of student council, when I was trying to be super outgoing, I just remember feeling like I'm trying to have fun. Like this is supposed to be fun and I'm just not feeling anything. And then I was getting a little more sick and more sick and more sick until one night I remember just being, so there's I don't know if you know what a sat checker is. It's like a little pulse monitor on your finger.
Okay.
It tells you how much oxygen you get and what your heart rate's at. I remember checking it that night because I just woke up randomly from my sleep and it was like my heart rate was just at a super low rate, like 45. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
oh my
and
gosh.
my mom was working at, she worked at the temple at the time. So she didn't have her phone on her. Right. So I was just like, if I call her, like, anyway, I called her. She picked up miraculously.
Wow.
Went to the ER. I was having a panic attack. Nothing was up with my heart. It was just anxiety. But the hard part growing up and still is that it was hard for me to defer what's anxiety and what's actual heart failure. Because a lot of the time I couldn't discern. So I went to the ER and I remember two of my friends texted me the next day like, hey, why weren't you at school? And out of all the people I knew at student council, like none of them said anything, whatever. And I just remember like, these are my two genuine friends, like these two people here. And it was a time when I was trying to be hype and popular and all these things. And I just realized what really mattered. It was like a wake up call for senior year. Like I want to focus on my genuine friends and being nice to other people and really caring about them, what they have to say, and not just a competition or not just this and this. So going through senior year was amazing. It was a great year. My heart was stable and I had a surgery. And also like when I say stable, I think a lot of, I've been learning that what I think is normal is not, when I mean stable, I mean like 2 surgeries a year, a lot of doctor's visits, a lot of phone calls. So that's stable for me.
Wow.
And so while I had that and my friends would help it was really hard still, that just being a normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did my first year at BYU Provo. So a mission, all my friends left on missions after high school. And I remember wanting to wait a year. My mom's reasoning was she wanted to see if I could, like energy wise do a mission.
Right.
So college was the test run. For me, I just felt like it was the right thing to do. And senior year, I really grew my testimony of God and just relying on, because I remember, just relying on God a lot during senior year. And that's when I started forming my testimony. And you think about the future and not just staying in the present of high school and getting out of that bubble. And I remember going through something hard and just being like, God's the person I need to turn to right now. And so basically I went in that direction. I did my first year of college at BYU, and it was so fun, and I learned so much. And it was a time where I realized no one like tells me what to do in my personal life as well. I had a lot of hard time living on my own because I had my anxiety of my heart going out. And I learned that, hey, it's okay. It won't go out. Anything can happen to everybody, right?
Right.
Anybody can just suddenly, boom. My condition isn't like an instant, I'll need a heart. It's a progressive.
Okay.
So it'll never just be like, boom.
Yeah.
And it took me, basically, I started realizing that more like, oh, I started growing my testimony of the Book of Mormon. I remember an assignment that we had to read. We had to read like 150 pages of the Book of Mormon in a semester. And I remember the day of it was due, I was like, oh no, I got to read 150 pages of the Book of Mormon today. So me being wanting to be honest, I spent 6 to 8 hours in the Book of Mormon that day. And I just remember crying that night because I finished with like 2 minutes to spare, did my, assignment. And I was just like, I feel like it's true. Like for the first time in my life, like I just had a good feeling after I spent all day in it. Like I just had a good feeling. And that's when I was like, I really do know that this is true, because I could choose whether to go to church or not. It's not forced anymore,
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was really great to just find out for myself. My mom's active, my dad's not active anymore, and for me to be able to find where I stood in my testimony and what I want in my life, it was a really good turning point to where the rest of that semester I just learned more that I'm not just a music person. I had callings that weren't aligned with music whatsoever, but just other stuff I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really organized during BYU. I just really organized, cleaned up a lot. And actually my room's not even clean. You should see that half. But it's something that's progressed.
It's okay.
But
We don't need to know.
yeah. Don't ruin
We're
the
on
dream
camera.
here.
The good stuff.
And then all my friends started getting mission calls, and I knew, so from the start, there were 2 options for a mission. One was a proselyting mission and one was a service mission. Proselyting missionaries go out 2 by 2 in different, parts of the world. They live away from home for 2 years and they spend all day knocking doors and making phone calls, and nowadays go on social media and just preach and help others come into Christ. And the other option was service mission. And I honestly didn't know anything about it other than that you just lived at home. Like I literally knew nothing else about it except you lived at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew with my situation, like I knew it was definitely a possibility.
Right.
I submitted my paperwork, and I remember going to my doctors being like, hey, like, is a proselyting mission, is that okay? And they said, you'll be stable for 2 years. You'll be good. Like your heart's looking great. Like, sorry, your heart's looking really bad, right? But it's at a stable point to where you'll be fine for 2 years to live how you're living now with doctor checkups and all these things and, different surgeries, catheters, etc. So I was like, that's amazing. That's such a miracle. So the doctors thought I'd need a new heart at age 13, and I was 18, 19 then. And I still hadn't like gotten to a point. I wasn't on oxygen. I actually like did really well, better than I thought I would at college with my health.
Mm-hmm.
And learning all these key lessons. One thing I really learned in college was to be more confident in my abilities to do good, not needing verification or essentially not needing someone to just tell me what to do, but just I remember putting on like a concert for my ward, like just getting all the people who wanted to play musical instruments or could, and basically we put on like a mini like 7-8 song concert with everybody and got the whole ward. And it was a time where I was like, I could do a lot of good if I just do it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't
Wow.
have to hold back. So I translated on my piano non-limitations to more my personal life as well.
That's
And
amazing.
when I got my mission call, I remember my stake president saying like, don't be surprised if it's not what what did he say? He's like, what you're thinking right now may not, basically said somewhere like, just don't limit God, right? God can do whatever he wants to do, right? You may think like you're not going out of the country. You may not think you're going to do this type of mission or whatnot, but you'd be surprised. So going into the mission call, I remember opening it and it was Spanish speaking and assigned Illinois Chicago mission. Now, there's a lot of reasons why this is special. One, both my parents went on Spanish speaking missions, and I loved, like, I actually took a like a week in college to just immerse myself in Spanish just for fun. Like I just want to learn Spanish. And that was one thing I just really wanted to do. Like I honestly didn't care where I ended up. I just really wanted to do Spanish. Like that was my one like preference if I had any.
Yeah.
Illinois, Chicago, or Chicago. So both my parents grew up in Chicago. My grandparents lived there for 30 years. I visited Chicago for my senior trip because I loved it so much.
Nice.
My grandpa was like in the temple presidency and the mission office, and it was just amazing. Like I was born in Northwest Indiana, which is within the mission borders. So I'd see like my old friends and things. It was just amazing. It was just like God knew me where I needed to be. The next week I started cranking out my Spanish. So like I practiced Spanish from then until July when I left. I remember that summer not feeling as great as I had been health-wise, but just anxiety as well. Like what if something happens with my heart and my mom's not there, or this help isn't needed and I need all these different things. And basically once I went out, I went to the MTC 6 weeks. It was great. I learned a lot. I had a really fun district that taught me a lot of things. And I learned just a lot of different things. Like it was a really neat experience. And when I went to the first 3 days I had in Chicago, I had like a trainer, someone who trains you in a mission field, MTC, I should clarify too. Missionary Training Center. It's in Provo. They teach you different principles of how to be a missionary. And basically my trainer or companion or person who was with me 24/7, he was amazing. And those first 3 days, I remember we talked to as many people as we could from door to door. I rolled down my car window and waved a guy down, like we did every contact. It's very big in the Chicago mission to spend time on social media, 90 minutes a day contacting.
Wow.
And so I learned a lot of that, as well as I gave like 3 different blessings. We had 3 baptisms that Sunday, and I gave a talk at the baptism and different things. The third day, that night, I got really sick, and I woke up the next morning just feeling awful and feeling like if I didn't get break or a rest, like I was like, I feel like I'm gonna die if I don't get like a break, like because my body's just gonna decline. I need rest. So the second day, or maybe it was the first day, I got permission to call my mom and explain the situation. And obviously she wasn't surprised, right? I have half a heart. That week, that Saturday, an apostle came to our mission and I played piano for him. That Monday I left to go back home and transfer to a service mission.
Oh.
So the 2 weeks, week and a half I was in Chicago. I did everything that you would expect a proselyting missionary to do or would want to do in a proselyting mission in just a week and a half. And the decision to come transfer to a service mission was really my line of thinking, just looking back through what I journaled and things, like it'd be harder for me to leave than it would be to stay. And that's how I knew it was the right choice, right? Not what's the hardest, but like it's not just me wanting to go back home. It's like it'd be harder to leave than it would be, because I just had so much fun in Chicago already, just teaching and being outgoing and saying hi to people and the Latinos and all these people. And I loved it. So I came home. That night we met with the service missionary leaders, and the service missionary leaders is a couple that basically presides over a group of service missionaries. The service missionary structure has changed since I came home. So when I came home, there was about 8 service missionaries, and I remember playing piano for one of the apostles in the Chicago mission. Everybody singing "Called to Serve." It was huge. It was, loud. The spirit was there. It was amazing. And then I remember playing "Called to Serve" at our little district meeting that night, or just a meeting with the missionaries, and it was 8 people, and I played "Called to Serve." And that kind of describes like how my transition was. I realized from all the big things in my life, like from performing everywhere and from doing this and this, that God was in also the small things, or what seemed small to people's eyes, right? I learned it. It was a hard transition for me because I've been taught all my life that proselyting was a mission, and that service missions just came out, I think like 2018. So it's super new. And it's deemed, or it was at least in my mind, as not a real mission. That's how a lot of people still think about it, and will probably think about it for 5 to 10 years. So that was a struggle. I didn't care where I served. I didn't care that I was in Utah. I just wanted to serve the way I thought was the right way. I wanted to proselyte.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think. I remember helping a couple with technology for 2 hours just one day, and I was like, "Is this really missionary work? Is this?" It was such a struggle for me to transition because of how I've been taught what a mission was. Scripture that we've all heard, DNC, or not all heard, I guess. DNC 4, Doctrine and Covenants 4, verse 2. It says, "Therefore, O ye that embark in the service of God, see that ye serve him with all your heart, mind, and strength, that ye may stand blameless before God at the last day. Therefore, if ye have desires to serve God, ye are called to the work." It didn't say, "Oh, ye that embark on the service of God, see that ye serve him by knocking doors and teaching lessons and doing this." Nor did it say, "See that ye serve him by helping people with technology or by helping a group of students in Africa learn," or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is in your service, it just says how to serve, and how being with, your desires and how you want to serve. So that was a lesson that I continually learn today, like how I serve. So that was July, September. That was September when I got back. Left in July for proselyting, came back service September. I finally, and my heart was slowly declining still. I remember going to the doctors and they're like, "We literally don't know what, like your heart looks stable.
Mm-hmm.
Like your heart looks the same, but you don't feel the same. So we're going to do a heart surgery. We'll check everything out." So we did it. They said, "We don't know. It looks the same. So we don't know why you're feeling this way." A few months later, or no, that was December. I literally was on the couch all day, the whole week. Like I couldn't move. It was just, I just had no energy. And we're like, "Well, something's wrong, right?"
Mm-hmm.
They said, and we're like, "Just get me on oxygen." And they don't know why my oxygen levels dipped or are dipping, because my heart looks the same. They still don't know why my oxygen level's low. And that's the crazy part. They don't know why. They don't know why I flush up a lot. Like now you can see I'm super red for just exerting energy and talking. They don't know why. But anyway, I got on oxygen. So I had a transition with my service, and I had to drop all my service missionaries. What they do in a day, they serve at service assignments. So instead of proselyting, they actually go to different, they go to the temple or family search or thrift stores, or not thrift store, or like charities or humanitarian centers, and they go and serve for the day. They come back home, then they go the next day and serve somewhere else. So that's their schedule. I had a few different ones, which I learned a lot in, and I had to stop all of them except for working at a family search center here locally. And essentially, it's really neat because I actually could go so service missionaries now can go proselyting. So when I got back, I actually went to the Spanish elders and went to the Spanish ward, etc. And it's a unique thing where service missionaries now can just go proselyting when they want to during the week, if it's with proselyting
Wow. Oh, I
missionaries.
love that so much.
That was an integration that happened July 2023. So that was a new thing. So that never happened. The organization was super different. You now had leadership. You had like district leaders and zone leaders, which is lingo in the community, in the church community, for just different leadership positions. And December hit, had to drop all my assignments. I stopped proselyting. I stopped going to the Spanish ward, and I was on oxygen. And it was a really hard spot. I was like, now I feel like I'm not even serving at all. Like at all, I'm not serving. Why? I'm literally on the couch all day just recovering. Yet I'm still a missionary. I could have easily just stopped. And I just remember getting a thought. I did a little music. Like I did some hymns. I wrote some hymns for, like, they call it agency hours when you're not at a service assignment.
Okay.
Like you can use your agency hours and serve within the community. So I used my studio equipment to like make hymns and things and posted just on my personal Instagram account and whatnot. And I felt an impression when I had to drop everything that December, which was really hard because I was excited for all the things I was going to do. I felt an impression to pick up the music again. Like just God telling me, like, let's use this music. How do we use it? So that whole month I was thinking, how can I use it? And came to the conclusion, I was looking online and I was just like, what if I did like rap? Like and like, well, you two just first heard about it today, but, even that, like, it's just like a out of the context thing. Like you just don't rap and
I will say it's not original. Back in the 80s, there was the Mormon rap, and it was amazing, and we all loved it. I know every word to it still. But I'm sure that your rap is probably a little catchier. Maybe a smidge.
And there's been people like James the Mormon or Colby Farron doing different missionary rap or just rap in the LDS community.
Okay.
However, it was something where I was so nervous. So remember, I dealt with like confidence levels my whole life. Like if I was confident in what I thought was right, and I hadn't been like I learned a bit at BYU that I could do good things if I just did it. No one was going to tell me to write rap. And I remember going to my mom was on board, and because I started out like it wasn't like rap, it was like pop more. It was like a super light, like pop music that had a little bit of rhythm to it. And I approached my leaders and I was like, oh man, this is not going to go well. Like I approached my leaders and I said, hey, I know I just stopped all my service assignments. Can I start doing the music full time? They're like, yeah, like, and it hasn't been like done. Well, I don't know, maybe, but far my knowledge, it hasn't been done. Like your service assignments are humanitarian centers, like already things put in spot. You can make your own. Like I know a lot of people who did art and music on the side or just as part of their service assignment. But it was unique in the fact that I wanted to actually put music on Spotify, like as a missionary that hadn't been, they weren't sure.
Right.
So we had to ask our mission president things if it was okay. And of course they were hesitant at first, like Rapping Missionary, like it started off as a Rapping Missionary, went to Rapping Missionary. They're like, and I kind of cautioned them, like, it's okay. It won't, you can approve the songs, whatever. So we started it. And the first, and just to caveat too, none of my songs are approved. Like I don't get them approved. I just put it, but I'll explain why in a second. So I posted, and I remember messaging that night. I posted January 16th. My first song came out called Notice. And I remember messaging all the people I knew on Instagram, not even new, like all the, like the influencers and the artists that I knew that were in the church community or whatever that night. And in the morning I woke up and some of them responded to me. They're like, hey, that's pretty neat that you're doing that. I did like my own website and everything. And basically I started that rappingmissionary.org and I started the rap. And basically that first video, someone just social media platform, Declare My Word, posted on their story, got like 13,000 views. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like, and It's and then it just like exploded at that point. Like a lot of the the re it was just amazing. Like it was something. It was a huge like click moment for me. No one told me to do this. I just received revelation by myself, and it was okay. It was not something culturally done, but it was something I felt was right. And as you can see, I'm in suspenders. It and this confidence kind of has like, and confidence not meaning like pride, but meaning like humble confidence in like what God
Right.
has called you to do. And this confidence has taken me a lot. Like it was a click moment where, okay, I want to be confident in this. And it was a struggle. The next few months, I learned a lot about my social media intake, my boundaries on it, when I should or shouldn't be on it, what I should be on, how I should be on it.
Mhm.
And it was all approved for my mission essentially. And I got all the songs approved. And then I started doing like different podcasts, and then I started doing like different firesides, and then going all these things, and never collaborated with anyone, but I just continued to do all these things. And then I got to a point where I was at like 13, 15, 14 million views. And I was like, this is just amazing to the reach that it is done. Like, and think like if I wasn't on oxygen, it wouldn't have happened. Like I couldn't do any other assignment, but
Yeah.
like I couldn't have done it. And the doctors don't know why I'm on oxygen. Like nothing.
Wow.
Like now they know, like they can see through tests, like, oh yeah, your exertion levels. They know like it's scientifically backed that my exertion level is definitely not what it used to be at all. Like it's
Mhm.
really bad, but they just don't know why.
Mm.
Wow.
So and so I did this rep. I remember stopping in July. Like I kind of like paused it for a second because I was faced with all these questions like, is rap a good thing to do? Is this just my own desires? Is this just what I feel like doing? And it came to a point where I don't need to get these songs approved because I'm not a proselyting missionary. Proselyting missionaries, they teach the doctrine, they baptize people, etc. My job is just to serve others with good music. I don't need to teach doctrine. I don't need to, whatever. Like it's just good music that connects with a lot of people. And that's when I shifted to, okay, I'm going to continue this direction and continue trusting that it's the right thing to do. I started, and so I've continued since, and essentially all that rap EDM experience, all this, I'm using my studio that I got in 6th grade to do God's work. And I'm using all the experience in high school that I got to do this. And then I'm sharing all the hard things of my life on a podcast like this that's going to connect with X number of people. And I also have learned that basically, like, one thing that I've really learned too, with bringing back to my divorced parents, how one thing I've really learned recently is how to love myself in a way where I was growing up. It was really hard to love myself and who I was because I was used to all these big accomplishments. I grew up where, like, if I didn't do something good, I was punished, whatever. Like, it was, so I was really mean to myself all the time for any mistakes I made.
Mhm.
And I didn't address my mental health until recently when I got news that I need a heart and liver transplant. But I started finally being like, it's time to start getting on the list. The list takes about 6 months. Well, it's taken about 6 months. I'm still not on a list. It takes a while.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask, why haven't you just gotten it yet? It's because it's a life and death scenario, right?
Yeah.
It's the complications are so high, like low survival rate. For my condition, like you can end up with like strokes, disabilities, cancer, blah, blah, blah. You'll always have to be on meds your whole life. You have a year. You'll basically be feeling awful for a year after, if everything goes well. And then you got to check up, and then you live X many of years, and then you'll need another heart transplant. It's not like
Really.
let's just get a heart transplant,
Wow.
it's life and death. So faced with life and death situations, at the time I wasn't doing my music because I was trying to figure out that. And then at the same time, I was having to deal with family struggles that recently came up just from, divorce things. And it was finally hitting me too. And I remember just being on the couch like, this is hard now. Like, it's always been hard mentally, but I finally had to like address it, or felt like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started going to therapy, which was amazing. I've never gone to therapy. And it was amazing. And then I went to this mental health conference, and I just realized I've always known that physical health was so important, but I never realized the mental health side, why it was. And I'm finally learning why it's so important. It's just liberating. Like, it's just liberating to know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important as much as physical health.
Right.
So now I'm at a spot where I love myself. I love what I'm doing. It doesn't matter to me how big the reach gets, as long as I'm just putting my 5 loaves in, right? Like, as long as I'm doing what I want to do and I enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
it'll get to the people that need it. And let's say in 50 years, it suddenly gets a really big push up. Like, I never know where this will go.
Right.
And it just seems like a stepping stone to my next step in life. Like, in fifth, it's been a journey I've seen God in. So I still do the rap. I'm working on my Christmas album, and
Yeah.
I have a really good friend who helped get me out of that mental health struggle. And actually the reason, like, your cousin, so him, my friend, and then another person in our ward came over for like an activity, and I showed them all this Rapping Missionary stuff, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing it anymore because I don't know if I should do it or whatnot. And I was struggling with all my health and family, and then music, and just confidence and loving myself. And they're like, what? That's whatever. They were reacting, and I suddenly got out of that mental health struggle because of good friends, and I started doing my music again and just realizing different coping mechanisms with me. And I'm just excited. I have, till July, and I'm excited to see where it'll go. I'm on all those social media, Spotify, Instagram's my main one, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and all these things. And I'm just excited to see like this whole, I don't know if you've like just this whole story. Like, I think that honestly, this is the most I've shared about my story on any platform or whatever, but just seeing how everything just like connected right now. Like, it just, everything in my life has just connected, and it'll be, and I'm not ignorant to what the future will be, to when I get my heart transplant. I still don't know when. And that was a big part of my mission, and still is. I'm walking in faith. Like, I don't know what tomorrow will look like at all. Like, I could be, probably won't be, but like, in a 6 to 8 months, I could be in a hospital bed fighting for my life. I don't know. None of us know the future, though.
Yeah.
I just can kind of sense what the trials will be a little more, like,
yeah,
I can see, it's going to be a heart struggle,
Right.
but none of us really know the future, and none of us can plan for it ever. But one thing I've learned is, as I keep trusting in Jesus and God, like, I can continue to serve my mission and just serve in my life and bring the story with me. It's just incredible to see where it will go. I'm only 20.
yeah,
and we each have our own story that's so unique. When we get to terms, I think, with our mental health, and if we really like understand, just are able to cope with our things, and really get on a spiritual level of seeing what Jesus needs or wants from us, we can really do good. God needs good people in the world. He needs us to good. There's so much good to be done in the world. We just need to do it. And when we're at peace with ourselves and with God, then we can help others. And that's been a huge thing for my mission, being at peace with God, being at peace with myself, my story. It's still so hard, but I'm learning that Jesus had a really hard life, right? Yet he was so happy. He was so joyful. He was so, he had, and I just want to enjoy my life too. And we really can when it's focused on Jesus Christ. We can enjoy it, regardless of our circumstances. To the world, I'm not in a good position at all right now. But to God, I'm in the best.
Yeah.
You got me falling over here. Oh my goodness. What you just said about how you're at peace with your story, that just spoke straight to my soul. I've never thought about it before, but I think that that's why a lot of people don't share their stories, is because they're not at peace with it yet. I think that's a lot of reasons why people don't do that thing that they are feeling is the good thing to do, right? They have a hard time with faith is because they haven't allowed that peace within themselves to exist with their story. They keep thinking the story has to change before I can have peace with it. But you are this amazing example of no, it doesn't. Like I love how you just kind of looked at like, look, I don't know why I'm feeling worse, but I know that it's for a purpose. And you're kind of like starting to see the purpose. And yeah, you could have done a great job as a proselyting missionary. I'm sure that you could have done a lot, and your heart could have sustained and remained stable and stuff like that. And you probably could have muddled through, right? By like exerting yourself and then being sick and exerting yourself and being sick. Cause sometimes, unfortunately, that's the normal, right? Like that's our normal when we have these types of, health struggles and stuff like that. We just have to get used to whatever it is. But the fact that you're just in it with God, you're just like, all right, sure, let's go do this. It's like you not only have had the faith to go, to go on your mission and stuff, but now you're exhibiting that faith to stay, to stay here on this service mission, to stay where you're at with your music, and to just really stay right by Heavenly Father's side, letting him walk with you in your story. And it is like, you're like an old soul. Like there's no way that a 20-year-old has this much knowledge. You know what I mean? And it's just so, you just have this, I can't even.
Well, I would say along with the peace that you have comes gratitude. And it seems that you're very grateful for the blessings that you do have, even though you've got a lot of challenges, which I think is, that's a lesson that a lot of us can learn, that might not have those physical challenges that you have. Sometimes it's hard to be grateful when you're in the middle of difficult things. And the fact that you found peace in the gifts and the struggles is inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for sharing that. And I also think that it's awesome that you are able to use your gifts for good, to reach millions of people. That is so
Literally.
cool. Like one of my biggest hopes in my life is that I can make a difference for good in the world. I think you too, Alicia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you're 20 and you've touched millions of people's lives for good through rap music, like that's just crazy. But it's also inspiring. So I think you're inspiring people in many different ways, just in the peace that you have in yourself, the gratitude that you've found, and then the gifts that you're able to share. Like, good for you, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I love it. I was having a conversation with someone just the other day, and I was talking to him about how we know, right? Like that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? Like it would, the scriptures talk about that. And so I think that sometimes we think, oh, then that means that everything has to be the exact same that it was 1,000 years ago in the Bible, right? It means that our hymns have to stay really slow and off key. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it means this and it means this and it means this. And I think that we're seeing, especially as we are in the last days, as we know that Christ's second coming is right around the corner, we're seeing that God still is the same, but men are different, right? People are different. And because he's the same and because he loves us all so much and he's always willing to give us what it is when we need it, and he knows exactly what that is, I think that what you're seeing is we're getting to witness through you right now and through other other members of the church and stuff like that who are finding these really natural, normal ways to share the gospel that's natural and normal to them. We're seeing where Heavenly Father here's the teenage boy who loves rap music. My son is a big NF fan. I mean, I think he knows everything about everything when it comes to NF, and he resonates with that. It speaks to him, and he feels so deeply and is so thoughtful when he's listening to like NF lyrics. And so I think that it's amazing to see you taking what Heavenly Father has given you, which is your gift of music, right? Your ability to be confident and all of these kind of things. And he is using that for you to be able to speak to other people who would only hear that language. They're not going to necessarily hear the language from the old school hymns because it's just not something, it's just not who they are right now. And that's okay. And not that you can't feel the Spirit anywhere, because I think you can, but I've seen that the church has been making these little transitions into helping to accommodate all of God's children and not putting everybody in just one box. I just think it's amazing what you're doing.
This scripture right here, 2 Nephi 31:3, for my soul delighteth in plainness, Nephi talking. For after this manner doth the Lord God work among the children of men, for the Lord God giveth light unto the understanding. And then right here, for he speaketh unto men according to their language, unto their understanding. And I think that just sums up
Oh,
perfectly what you're saying. We each connect with God and with our story in different ways.
mm-hmm.
And while there's principles behind them, when we focus on Jesus, the amazing part is we can look past all the traditions or the things like that, just as he did with the Pharisees, and focus on the principle there.
Absolutely.
And just to see God take all these hard things in my life to get where I am now to help others. Because freshman year, I was a teenage boy who was lonely, and I listened to music and I looked at my Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And now I get to be someone, which is a full circle moment, to help that teenage boy look on Instagram. And it's just like, I'm helping like who I once was. Like, it's just such a,
It's
so
healing, isn't it?
special. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And it'll look different for everybody. They're healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the beauty is when you follow God and take these weaknesses and make them strengths for others and for yourself. And when you really do the work to just be at peace with yourself, it's just so liberating. And then being like, hey, God, you put me here. This is your story. So write your story, being willing to adapt to because we're going to have to adapt. I'm going to have to adapt, when my transplant comes. I'm going to have to adapt when I just go back to school and end my mission and and move on from Rapping Missionary.
Right.
What am I going to do then? But the nice thing is when we focus on the present and really just where we're at now, because all the anxiety things, that's all future. So we focus on the present, we can just do the most good we can this day. And we don't have to wait for someone else to tell us to do it. That's the empowering part. God trusts us to do it. He puts people in I call like sphere of influence. It's known by many names. Just my sphere of influence is a lot on social media right now, and a lot with this podcast, or a lot with my friends and family. Someone's influence could be their coworkers or just their little family, like in the countryside, wherever. Like when we do the most to impact our spheres of influence by just following God and what he has us to do, that's what we call doing our best, or that's what makes a fulfilling life, when we help our sphere of influence. And God is with us through our story. Our influence is different, but God is always with us, and he's with us more than we realize. We just, once we come at peace with ourselves, we can receive his peace and his love more fully. And it just becomes a cycle that you do throughout your whole life. Continue to adapt and learn and help and become this amazing person that you are, and then just live forever happily. Like that's the goal. It's going to be so hard, but it's going to be so amazing.
Oh, man. Wow. Well, I'm gonna show my boys. I have a son who's getting ready to go on a mission, and he's getting ready to put his papers in right now and stuff like that. And he's our first, So he's my oldest. I've never done this. But I am so excited to be able to show both of them your videos. I'm excited to sit and just binge watch all of them myself.
Please do. Please do.
I'm pretty sure that maybe one day you and I will collaborate, and we'll throw Scott in there too, because Scott is an amazing lip syncer. So we'll have to all make a video together. I'll do Mormon rap. You can like level it up some. Scott can be lip syncing. It'll be fantastic.
Like I said, Rapping Missionary, rappingmissionary.org is where you can
old
find all my.
right?
Hey, you can still be a missionary even after you get released as an elder too, right?
That is very true.
The Rapping Missionary will stay like through my life, which would be cool.
That's so true. Okay, so we're going to share all of your things. We're going to share your handles. I feel like we can definitely even share. I don't know. Let me ask you this. What's your favorite song that you've done so far? Like, what's your favorite rap? I would love to share that at the end of the show.
It's always just got to be my recent. Like
so it keeps changing.
Yeah, like it's always my recent because I try to get better, and I finally, it's always my recent. So as long as you like, the website is where you can find all my recents and my 30 plus songs or whatever. So
okay, and give us that website again.
rappingmissionary.org, or you just look up Rapping Missionary Google, it'll be there. So.
Okay, perfect. And I was able to find you really quickly when I went on TikTok and just typed in Rapping Missionary as well. It popped up. So we'll make sure that we're sharing all of those links and stuff like that. And I'm just gonna call it that when we wrap up here, we will go ahead and put in your most recent rap so that listeners can hear it right away and they can kind of get a feel for it and everything like that. But
perfect.
This has just been fantastic. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So do you have any last final thoughts before we wrap things up, Elder?
No, I think that was it. God's with us in our story.
That's perfect.
We can definitely see him in yours. So thanks for being on here, man. We really appreciate it. And keep serving, keep reaching out and making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And you know what? Just from one person who's had a lifelong diagnosis of leukemia to someone who is having a lifelong diagnosis with heart problems, let me just tell you, don't put God in a box when it comes to your health either, right? You may say you have to have a transplant, or maybe you're going to have multiples, or but you know what? Heavenly Father can work it all out. He can work it out. He could keep you surviving and thriving on half a heart for the rest of your life if he wants to. And so I just don't go into that anxiety moment and stuff like that. Just know that he's got you. He's got you, and it's going to be beautiful no matter what. And you're going to be able to do everything that you're supposed to be doing. And you have no idea what's around the corner. That's my favorite thing when it comes to health stuff is we have no idea what medical miracle is coming out tomorrow. We have no idea what cure is coming. We have no idea what type of surgery is coming or procedure, or, you know what I mean? We don't know who Heavenly Father is already working on to be able to work on other people. So just because it is one way today does not mean it's going to be that way tomorrow.
That's awesome.
Oh, man. Well, we wish you all of the success and luck and all of the great things that are in store for you. I don't even think we need to wish it for you. You got it in the bag. It seems like Heavenly Father is really just smiling down on you, and he's just going to keep guiding you. And I love that you are I'll rather beg for permission, or beg for what's the saying that I always say, Scott, beg forgiveness rather than ask permission. Just go do good. Just go do good. I think it's great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again for being on the show, and thanks everyone for tuning in to listen to Elder Castleton's podcast and story. And go ahead and do your 5-second missionary work, which is what we call it on our podcast, and hit that share button so that we can get this message out there and share some more light into the world.
Absolutely. And be sure that whatever social media you're on, that you go find and follow Elder Castleton as the Rapping Missionary. he's doing all the hard work, guys. All you have to do is just click a little button, share it with some friends, comment on it. Commenting on it is such a great thing. Liking it, all of those things. It helps so much to get these things out into the world. So make sure you guys do that. And if you have a story that you guys would like to share, we want to hear from you. Please, please, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can head over to latterdaylights.com and fill out the form at the bottom of the page, or you can comment, anywhere that you're hearing this, or on Facebook. We're around. We're all over the place. And so we would love to hear from you guys, and make sure that you guys share, Elder Castleton's story.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Elder, for being on, and thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week with another episode. Till then, take care.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye, guys.